Good morning, everyone. Chris here, aka Boy Scout Benna. Today I'm going to be discussing what happened to my old 401k when I left that company and how that 401k was rolled over into an individual retirement account, target date mutual fund, and how much money I'll be saving from switching from that mutual fund into a low-cost total stock market ETF. Before I start this video, I want you to tell me in the comments what you think you pay in fees for your retirement account. And I hope by the end of this video that you'll at least go check it out and maybe consider switching it up. Sometimes they're a lot higher and you don't even know it. So I just calculated that my old 401k is going to have $66,000 in fees if I retire at the age of 65. Stick around to the end and I'll explain to you why that is and how I plan to reduce those fees to less than $3,000. My background is in oil and gas, and in 2011, for the first time, I started working in good old Oklahoma and contributing to my retirement account in my workplace 401k. If you haven't seen it yet, you should check out my previous video discussing the advantages of the 401k. It's a short 5-minute video that I'll post in the description below going over the advantages of the employer-sponsored plans. Now, when hard times hit the oil and gas industry in 2015, I was sadly let go from my job, thus no longer contributing to my workplace 401k. Now, when you leave your job, there are typically two options with your 401k. Sometimes you can keep it where it's at, but more typically, it gets rolled over into an individual retirement account. And from here on out, I'm only going to call it an IRA because individual retirement account is a mouthful. Now, in my particular case, my institution rolled over my 401k into an IRA. They put it into a target date mutual fund of 2045, which is 8 years before the typical age of retirement, but c'est la vie. To be honest with you, I really didn't think about that IRA when it got rolled over because I knew I couldn't touch it until retirement. But as I've gotten older, I've started to think maybe I could retire early and thus have started to manage my money more efficiently, which is one of the reasons why I created this YouTube channel. That rollover IRA in 2015 had $43,000 in it, and by the end of 2016 grew to $46,000, as the stock market only grew 8% year over year. You're probably saying, Chris, that's great. Your money grew $3,000 year over year, and you've already admitted you weren't thinking about it. Yes, the account grew $3,000 year over year, but we still had to deduct management fees that are defined by the expense ratio. The expense ratio is an annual fee that mutual funds and ETF charge their shareholders. It covers expenses such as administrative fees and operating costs. And a quick Google search will tell you that a good expense ratio should be between 0.5% and 0.75%, which you'll see maybe isn't so great. My rollover IRA had an expense ratio of 0.79%, which is a little high for the old Google search, but like I said, I wasn't paying attention back then. So while the fund gained $3,000 in a year, I had to pay $369 in fees, as the fees are charged based on the total fund amount. These fees don't seem all that bad compared to the cash withdrawal ATM fees, but they do have a cumulative effect. Now in my title, I said the fund has $66,000 in fees, which is a little clickbaity and obviously not true yet. But had I kept the money in there through the age of retirement, the money would have grown to $590,000 given an annual 7% return. But over the 30 some odd years, that fund would have grown to $590K. I would have paid $66K in fees, or roughly 11% of the ending value, making those ATM fees look like child's play. And this is just showing the power of compound interest in a negative light. Now obviously I'm not going to pay those fees. This is because I'm going to switch my IRA from that mutual fund into a low-cost ETF that'll give me similar results by the age of retirement. So what's the difference between a mutual fund and an ETF? It basically comes down to a mutual fund is actively managed, while ETF is a passively managed investment portfolio. While both funds will have many assets in them for diversification, a passively managed fund will typically mimic a market index instead of picking and choosing what stocks to invest in. This passive management allows ETFs to have much lower fees. So I crunched the numbers and I found an ETF with an expense ratio 26 times lower than that of the mutual fund. With an expense ratio of 0.03%, those fees I paid in 2016 of $369 would go all the way down to only $14, which is pretty remarkable, right? And while the total lifetime growth of that IRA is still $590K given that 7% annual return, my total fees go from $66K all the way down to $3K, which is way better than those ATM fees. Lastly, you could be saying to yourself, Chris, what if that ETF returns aren't as good? It's not actively managed. What if it doesn't do as well? Well, comparing the 1, 3, 5, and 10-year returns of the two funds, the ETF has actually outpaced my former mutual fund over the past 10 years. So I'm willing to bet it will continue to do well and mimic the total stock market. So there you have it. The clickbait title was just a way for me to show you the compounding fees in a retirement account and to look at lowering your expense ratio. I didn't share with you what mutual fund I was in or what ETF I was switching to, because you should absolutely do your own research before you invest your own money. I just want to show you some of the tools I looked at before making that decision. And if you use those tools yourself, jam on that like button until it turns blue. If you've made it this far and like, wow, I could be paying that much in fees, jam on that like button because this video has successfully fulfilled its purpose. If you've made it this far and are now going to review your expense ratio, jam on that like button until it turns blue and tell me in the comments what your old expense ratio was. Thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe below. It'll let me know that you enjoy my content. I try and post every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. just in time for your morning coffee. And don't forget to jam on it because there's no time like the present to start making changes in your life. Thank you.